The families of four seniors gone missing in Muskoka in Ontario still seek answers into what happened to their loved ones. This story appears to be headed in the same direction as so many others: vulnerable victims, greed, theft, and abuse. When authorities do catch the person or people responsible, they will have caught up with one or more serial killers, one or more people who preyed on elderly people who were also vulnerable because of their poverty, and they will have answered questions that have been open for more than 26 years. The Ontario Provincial Police, or OPP, are investigating the disappearances of Joan Lawrence, 77, John Crofts, 69 when he went missing, Ralph Grant, known as Doogie to friends, 70 and originally from Nova Scotia, and John Semple, an Irish immigrant, 89, as a homicide investigation. For more than 20 years, police refused interviews by the media, but began granting them 3 years ago in an effort to gather further leads. In fact, they were able to get more information in 2019 that they say advanced the case. The Land family, Catherine, Paul, Walter, David, and their uncle Ron Allen, set up 3 unregulated retirement properties in the region. Catherine Land was investigated around the same time for embezzling a large amount of money from a school. The properties were advertised to less fortunate seniors as rooms in a residential atmosphere with on-staff nursing, dietitian, and activities. Seniors with few family connections and little money were invited to come live in the homes, and most of these were from the Toronto area. David, the eldest sibling, had a criminal record for breaking and entering and theft. Walter has a criminal record for break and enter, fraud, and impersonating a police officer. Catherine's record includes drugs, theft, and extortion prior to the school embezzlement investigation at the Muskoka Christian School, where she was the treasurer. Not the typical types you would expect running retirement homes, and for good reason. Workers and tradesmen and others who were in the homes described the conditions of these places as poor. The OPP received numerous complaints about how vulnerable people were being treated and housed in these homes. Though the Lands boasted about a staff dietitian, some seniors were given craft dinner 3 meals a day, and there were 11 elders crammed into one home with 4 bedrooms in one case, sleeping on mattresses that were laid out on the floor. One by one, people living in the Lands' homes began to disappear. First to go noticed as missing was Joan Lawrence, published Canadian poet and a copywriter who was known in the area as the Cat Lady. In 1998, Aaron Burke would be assigned to investigate her disappearance. She had been another recruited by the Lands. She lived in a garden shed behind one of the Lands' residents with dozens of cats that she took care of. It had a small space heater for about $600 a month. She had no other place to go and was not willing to leave her animals. Only 2 days after the OPP paid a visit to her decrepit conditions, and shortly after complaining about a missing tax refund check, she disappeared. Police would discover that the missing check had been cashed and endorsed by someone other than Lawrence. They're holding back the details of exactly who. However, they do say that Lawrence had a joint account with her landlord, David Land. Workers at the bank would tell police that she would come in, cash her monthly check, go outside, and hand her money to a man waiting there. Although no one saw Joan since October 1998, the bank card issued to David Land on that joint account was used at least 6 times up to mid-November. For their part, the Lands would tell police that this woman, who had no money, had traveled to New York to visit a wealthy friend, or maybe to Vancouver or to Hawaii for a vacation. None of their excuses were plausible, and no one was buying them. David Land would instruct another resident to mislead police about when he last saw Lawrence. That same resident, though, was providing information to police about when he last saw Lawrence, about gunshots that he heard, and about seeing a backhoe moving around in the dark at the location that Lawrence lived, driven by David Land. Police believe she would be found near the property, but to date, no remains have been found. The nearby lake is murky and ink-like, and a days-long search of the lake also uncovered no remains, and there was just not enough evidence to arrest David Land. Joan would have been 5'5", 118 pounds, with long salt and pepper colored hair and brown eyes. She was thin and often wore a scarf over her head. People in the small community knew her, some quite well. There is evidence that the Land stole government and retirement funds from 16 former residents, including the 4 who remain missing. In some cases, death benefits meant for next of kin were claimed by members of the Land family. Checks were being cashed long after the deaths of individuals whose deaths had actually been reported, but not a single person went to jail. There were conditional sentences, probation, community service, and orders for restitution, but no jail. The remaining 12 deaths were not considered suspicious. They had been reported and forensic examinations done. The Lands were convicted for the thefts, but the disappearances still remain. And they continued to be uncovered during the investigation into Joan Lawrence's disappearance. There were the 3 men, all of whom had health issues that would have made it impossible for them to leave on their own. All of them lived in Land residences, all gone without the Lands ever reporting a single one of them missing. They might have stayed under the radar had no one been that interested to report Joan herself missing. The Lands found Doogie Grant living in a homeless shelter in downtown Toronto, having fallen on hard times. Ralph Grant, Doogie's nephew, would say that going to Muskoka ended up being a horror show for his uncle. Ralph believes that his uncle either died naturally and his body just discarded, or that he was murdered and his body discarded. Either way, Doogie and his family deserve answers, and they deserve justice. He was 5'9", white, about 180 pounds, balding with brown hair. His lower jaw had been surgically removed due to cancer. In the case of John Crofts, his sister helped him board a bus to Toronto from Peterborough, Ontario in March of 1997 and never saw him again. He too had been living in men's shelters and rooming houses. He had a mental illness that made it difficult to care for him. He moved to a Land residence sometime in 1998. He was 6'3", 169 pounds, graying black hair and brown eyes. He wore a mustache and had a thin build. He walked forward on his toes and had Mother tattooed on his left forearm. Someone knows what happened to these 4 people. Someone knows where they are. Someone knows why their deaths were not reported and their remains remain unfound. If you know anything at all that can help, please do not assume that the OPP already has the information and tell the authorities. Push in 2019 did see tips that advanced the case, according to the OPP. So it's possible that a little more information can help resolve the case finally. You can be anonymous through Crime Stoppers or call the OPP numbers on the screen. There is a $50,000 reward in each of the cases for information that could lead to the resolution of them. Catherine Land died in July 2019. And yes, it's been a long time, but that doesn't mean that these 4 people should be forgotten. They were elderly, they were vulnerable, they were taken advantage of, and they were targeted by a family of fraudsters and thieves. Despite the time that has passed, they should be brought home, and these cases should be brought to justice. Thank you for listening. If you're enjoying these videos and want more, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any videos. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate it.